And just like that, Ben Stokes has ended his career. I don't think I've seen anything like it. Ben Stokes is in the middle of his spell. The news breaks out that he's retiring, and he goes on to take a wicket the very next ball. It's such a Ben Stokes thing to do. The whole thing was so Ben Stokes in the way it all ended. And that was just one story from the biggest week of cricket so far this summer. The other things that happened, Ireland whitewashing India 2-0. Shreyas Iyer calling it a depressing moment. New Zealand winning the series 2-1 against England, and India playing England now within 2 days of getting whitewashed, and England going through all that drama with New Zealand playing each other in a T20 series. The first match got wiped out due to rain, but the second one is happening right now. Sooryavanshi is playing, which we'll talk about as well. Welcome back to another episode of the In Between Overs podcast. We're your host of Today's Play. I'm Taran.
I'm Ishaan.
All right, there's only one place to start. We have to talk about Ben Stokes. Is he the greatest England cricketer of his generation that just retired?
Look, we can't, as much as I love Ben Stokes, as much as what he brought to the game of cricket, Test cricket especially last few years, is he, the best England all-rounder, the best England all-rounder Test player? Let's not go to that stretch. But is he one of the most exciting? Does he, as what Bazball was supposed to do, bring bums to the seat? He does. And having a loss like that for England, having no real replacement right now for a player of that caliber, not only from a skill perspective, but from a leadership perspective as well, it is a huge vacuum that England now has to fill in their squads. But going back to, that day, the retirement day, it was all about Ben Stokes. And was it a big FU to management, to the coach? I don't know, but it did seem like, as a lot of the articles written after that day, it does seem like, Ben burned the church that he had once created. It seemed like he wanted to leave on his own terms. It seems like he wanted to open batting. I think that there's a new stat now that there's only been 3 international players to ever bat from positions 1 to 11. And Ben Stokes, coming in at number 2 and number 1, I believe, was able to now become the 3rd player ever to do that. So was it for his legacy? Was it for a FU? Was it to really show what England might miss, which is, that unpredictability when it came to Ben Stokes? Maybe, but all that being said, Ben Stokes will be missed for England for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know if he's the greatest ever, but he's definitely going to be missed a lot, and he's going to be a huge loss for this England team. Not only from not only from a captaincy standpoint, but what he brought with the bat, what he brought with the ball. We saw that right in the intro with the way he took that wicket when the announcement was made public. Like that is so Ben Stokes. He's had so many moments like that throughout his career and so many key moments that change the complexion of games as well. And I think that is what England is going to miss. The whole we'll talk about what happened in the test match, I guess, in a second. But if you look at Ben Stokes' stats with regards to him being one of the greats, so he retires playing 122 tests. I didn't even realize that he played that many tests, and I guess that's a testament to how much cricket England plays as well. And for a long time, he was a single format player as well, where all he did was play tests. So 122 tests, 6,469 runs, 250 wickets. So he ends right at 250. That's amazing in itself. And he's only one of 2 players alongside the GOAT all-rounder Jack Callis, who also scored 6,000 plus runs. I believe Jack Callis got 10,000, if I'm not mistaken, and then 250 plus wickets. So he stands alone alongside Callis. I think between the two, Callis is still at the top. Ben Stokes is still one below Callis. Although you could argue and say Ben Stokes has had more iconic moments than Callis. Ben Stokes has won a World Cup, 2019 World Cup, right? He played that key innings. No one will forget the ball bouncing off his bat and then him raising his arms in suggestion that, that not his fault, which it wasn't. And then you had Headingley 2019, that knock with Jack Leach, that partnership. No one could believe what was happening in that innings. That was a phenomenal innings. Then you had the 2023 Ashes where he helped he he helped galvanize England to storm back and tie that series. I remember they were down two. They could have easily been up, but they were down two, and then they came back and tied the series. Probably could have won that series. We all know the famous morally win or moral victory that they had that series. And then you also had the T20 World Cup as well in I believe it was 2022 when he helped England in the final against Pakistan. So he's had a lot of moments, iconic moments for England, and he's the reason why England Test cricket has been so fun to watch. Amongst all the drama, they've been fun to watch in terms of the way they approach the game. Although you could say that their own fans are kind of they feel they feel different about it because the team hasn't been winning as much as they should, especially against the big nations like India and Australia. Now, has he left England in a better spot than when he was in the team? I don't know because they seem to be in a disarray right now. But overall, as a cricketer, England are losing someone that provided a lot of balance to their squad, which they no longer have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think to your point, they only not only lose the balance, but they lose that experience and that leadership in the locker room. I know you've mentioned a lot of iconic moments from Ben Stokes' career, the World Cup, the Headingley 2019. But let's not forget, one of the most iconic moments for Ben Stokes was that final over he bowled against West Indies in the T20 World Cup final. The one
Yeah.
he obviously, that was a setback for him. I think he spoke, in interviews after that as well. It was big for him to sort of accept that what he had done, and he was obviously getting trolled online. And I believe he had taken some time off as well. Maybe this was before this time, maybe right after for mental health reasons as well. So he's obviously had his ups and downs as a cricketer, but I think if you fast forward to the last test that he had with England, I think that Ben Stokes is what Ben Stokes is for England. That player who's always there, that player who's there willing to fight, that player, if he's there, there's a chance to win. So maybe that diehard mentality is what's left from Ben Stokes. We hope it kind of, by osmosis, got into, Harry Brook, some of the younger ones in the squad, and then hope that leadership and that, dusting yourself off after a big setback and coming back stronger is instilled in those younger players. But I do agree with you. I think it's hard to say if England test squad is in a better shape than when he took it. Still don't have a marquee spinner. The openers you're still trying to play around with. You do have a leadership vacuum as well. Joe Root probably doesn't want his captaincy. Harry Brook has obviously the incident in Noosa last year that he has to overcome as well. So there is that leadership vacuum. Perhaps he could have maybe grown someone to become a leader, and that's a fault for him. But what I think he will be missed is that diehard mentality and that sort of dusting yourself off for the next match. Because I think he definitely brought that. As much to your point, they did not have a lot of successful tours. They did not. But it did seem like at the beginning of every test match, England was ready to play. England wanted to win, and they brought the energy, and that's what the fans wanted. And it did feel like whenever England did start a series, did start a test match, they were always in the fight. As much as they were probably underdogs in Australia for the Ashes, everyone was still tuning in because they wanted to see how Jack Crawley didn't play Stark. They wanted to see Ben Duckett perform. They wanted to see Ben Stokes bowl. So he was part of that, and we hope that some of that diehard mentality still continues for England's test squad. And hey, we do see a lot of rumors as well that this may not be his true retirement. Maybe it's a play to maybe make some changes at the ECB and then maybe come back for the Ashes. But right now, it does seem like Ben Stokes played his final test match.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe that there will be a leadership vacuum, as you mentioned. But I think England will figure out who should be the leader going forward. I have heard that Harry Brook should just focus on white ball. I think I agree with that. They probably should get a separate captain for their test team because it's such a gruesome format, brutal format. It's also a format that England plays a lot. So it's going to be tough for someone like Harry Brook to manage three formats. But then the question becomes, who is that other player? Which right now there's no answer. They have a lot of inexperienced players on the team. I know that everyone's thinking Joe Root, but Joe Root doesn't want to be captain. He made that clear, which is why he gave it up in the first place. And now you're thinking of making him captain at a time where he is your best batter and you want him to just focus on that, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage the next 12 months because, as you also mentioned, there are rumors about him maybe coming back if this existing management is kicked out as well, right? Who knows what's in store for Brendan McCullum? I think there's a bit of time between now and their next test match. So they have a lot of time to make some decisions, but they probably have to make decisions quick because they also want time for, if they do make changes, for that next management team or the players to prepare well for that next series that they have. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out, but I wouldn't put it past Ben Stokes coming back. He did that in the white ball setup, right? He came back to play. It was the 50 over World Cup, I believe, that he
Yeah,
came back for, and he came out of retirement to play that. So I don't put it past him to come out of retirement to play the Ashes. That would once again be such a Ben Stokes thing to do. So so sticking with I guess quote unquote selfishness, right? Which you could argue and say that's selfishness, coming back for just an iconic series like the Ashes, like he did for the World Cup. Well, how selfish was the whole retirement thing that happened where he retires mid-match, the clip goes online of the speech that he gives the boys in the change room, in the dressing room, and you could tell, like, okay, so you've asked someone to record that, right? Or maybe someone's just constantly recording in the English team, but you haven't seen too many other clips come out of the dressing room, right? So it was clearly like, okay, have someone record what I'm going to say, and then he says what he says, and then that gets publicly announced, and then he does his thing, taking a wicket. After that, you see him run off. So when New Zealand declare, you see him run off along with Ben Duckett, Emilio Gay, the other opener that should be running off to pad up. But no, Stokes runs off to pad up. And you're sitting there thinking, why do you need to open? That makes no sense. And then he says the next day that apparently it was planned. But then you go back to the replays and you see him kind of like whispering in Emilio Gay's ear, telling him, "Yo, chill. I'm gonna bat. I'm gonna open the batting." So it's like it felt very selfish, and you contrast that with Kane Williamson and the way he retired, where he, yes, retired mid-series, but nobody talked about it after. It was very like in the background. Yeah, his time is up. That's it. Nothing was mentioned. It probably has a lot to do with the characters as well. Like Kane Williamson is very soft-spoken, humble, and Ben Stokes is humble his own way, but he's also very out there as well, right? And so it really felt like this was all about Ben Stokes.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll look back at that day favorably in his career if this was his last test match. I think, selfishness is the right word. I think if we just take a step back, announcing it mid-day, mid-match, again, not mid-series, mid-match,
Mid-innings.
mid-innings, while you're actually still in the fight. England were
Yeah.
still in the fight. England is a classic
Yes.
match. England could have had an opportunity to win. But it did seem like, a captain doing that while a match is going on is a little bit weary. You do just want to focus on winning. I could never imagine an Australian trying to do that. I feel like they would get ridiculed by the ex-players. I feel like if a Steve Smith, or not even a Steve Smith, someone else had done that, I feel like Ricky Ponting would have rolled them under the dirt for such a blasphemous thing to do mid-match while you're still in the game. And then to open the batting. Now, let's take a step back, okay? Stokes has opened the batting last time when? No one knows.
No,
No one knows. Was it tactical? Sure, but I feel like you can, use that excuse for any stupid decision you make. And it did seem like, England kind of capitulated after that. You heard the stump mic after Harry Brook's wicket, the New Zealand players running around literally saying, "What are they doing? What are they
Yeah,
doing?" So it was
yeah,
shocking because even New Zealand's, again, a formidable test side, they knew the match was still on. They knew that if England played smartly, they had about a day and a half to chase that total. Very, very
yeah.
doable. Things that this England team has done. They've chased mammoth totals before. But it did seem like, the test match was maybe not the main focus. It was maybe directing a message to the world, to the ECB. And maybe this message is not only from Ben Stokes, maybe it's from some of the other players as well. Maybe they don't like the way the team is going. They don't like some of the direction. I know we had talked about this earlier, but there was rumors that there was some misalignment between Ben Stokes and the coach during the Ashes tour. So maybe it was a big FU. This team is on my side. They're going to listen to me, and that's that. And maybe now ECB has to make a big decision at the top if they want to keep, I would say, some of the players that they're duly invested in to do well in the future, because it did seem like it was selfish. It did seem like it was a statement as well from Ben Stokes, and maybe a statement from the team as well.
Yeah, you hit it with the comment you made on the targets that they've chased before. So they were chasing 373. They've shown that they've been able to chase 300 plus targets in this baseball era. Not once in the chase of those targets, and I can say this without looking at the actual stats. Not once in those successful chases did Ben Stokes open the batting. The chases were successful because Ben Stokes came in at 5, at 6, at 7, and scored those runs when it was needed, like he did at Headingley when he came in. When he came in at number 5, number 6, wherever he was batting at the time, and scored that iconic inning, shepherding the tail and getting England over the line. I felt that that's what they needed to do here, chasing the target of 373 that New Zealand set. I think the best way to leave would have been trying to chase that target down the way you've been chasing it in the last 4 years of this era. And then Stokes coming in. How iconic would it have been Stokes coming in at number 7 with maybe England needing, I don't know, 100 runs left. There's 100 runs left in the target, and now he's sort of shepherding that chase or helping England over the line. That would have been way more iconic in a way to go, and a very Ben Stokes way to go than him opening the batting. I don't think that made any sense. I thought that was really selfish. I thought his whole approach was selfish. And I thought it kind of like just it just threw England in chaos. Like the entire approach after that was just complete chaos. As you said, New Zealand were cackling at and laughing at what was going on. It's like, are they really just going to throw away this test match? You have a series on the line, and you are playing literally, as Ravi Shastri would say, harakiri cricket, where it's just suicide. And the game was done when they were 4 down at the end of that day. You knew the game was done because you lost the batters that could essentially chase that target or put a dent in that target. You're left with Root and Emilio Gay at the crease. Obviously, great batters in their own right. Root the GOAT. Emilio Gay showed good signs in his career so far, but you don't see them as batters that could chase a target down the way England have chased these targets down. So it really felt like, yeah, saying the word again, it really felt selfish in the decision that he made to open the batting. I don't think that was needed. I also think that he could have just announced his retirement at the end of the test match. Just gone through the test match, did the best, or he could have kept whatever he said to the team. That could have stayed with the team. They could have gone through the entire test match and then released it and made it public. But no, they had to release it publicly in the middle of the test match. And apparently Stokes said that he talked to Baz and the team and the management to figure out when to make it public. And so you could argue and say it was Baz McCullum and management that decided to release that video and make it public mid-test match. And I think McCullum said, why wait? Just release it now. But the reason you would wait is so that you could maintain some focus, try to win the test match, and then release it.
No, you're right. I'm not, like, again, We look at all those superstars that have retired. A lot of people have retired in the last few years. Nothing like this has happened. Was again, to your point, tactical, selfish. I don't know. But hey, if it was announced after the fact, what I can tell you for free is he would not have gotten as many standing ovations as he got on the fourth and fifth day.
Yeah, definitely not. It would have been a lot of praise online if it was after the test match. Nothing live, right? So maybe it was a bit of that that he wanted, and he got it. Was it for the betterment of English cricket? I don't know, but that's how he ended, and that's how Ben Stokes' career has come to an end. So going back to the start of our conversation where we talked about one of the best ever in terms of England cricketers. So maybe not one of the best England cricketers, but if you look at the English all-rounders that they've had over the years, right? And I would say before Stokes, the top all-rounders in England cricket would be Ian Botham and Flintoff. Where does he rank among those three or between them?
I would say the way you order them is the correct order. Maybe he's above Flintoff, maybe, but I don't see him above Ian Botham. I think Ian Botham is like a class player. A lot of legendary stories with him as well. I think we to your point, take a step back. We look at his entire career. He has a 2019 World Cup, Ben Stokes, but apart from that, it did seem like from a test side, especially, he was a little shy of his promise in terms of those victories, especially as captain. If we look at Ashes, maybe winning one test out of how many in Australia, not the best record. The last India tour, they were done and dusted in terms of it was a new squad. Bumrah was injured for a few tests, and England was only able to tie India in England. So I think from a results perspective, that carries a little weight when you talk about greatest of all time. And so I would definitely place him maybe as a second or third when it comes to England's top all rounders of all time.
Okay, interesting. For me, he's easily above Andrew Flintoff. I think Andrew Flintoff is number three. I know this is a lot of nostalgia with Andrew Flintoff, but in terms of just pure match-winning performances and actual trophies, I think Ben Stokes takes the cake there. When it comes to Ian Botham, maybe from a trophy standpoint, you could say that, Ben Stokes is up there, but it wouldn't be fair to Ian Botham as well because there weren't as many championships played back then, right? And so with Ian Botham, though, I agree from a stats standpoint, from just sheer technical standpoint as a player, I would say Ian Botham was better than Ben Stokes. I've only watched a few clips of Ian Botham here and there. I've watched him bowl a little bit, bat a little bit, not to the same extent as I've watched Ben Stokes and Andrew Flintoff. But if you look at stats alone, like he's scored a lot of runs, took a lot of wickets for England as well. And so for me, I would say he's just slightly below Ian Botham. I can see the argument of him being the best all-rounder England has produced as well. I wouldn't argue against that. I could see an argument for that. And just from the sheer amount of performances, victories, match winning moments from situations where England should have lost games, like even the 2019 final, I know at the Headingley that's pretty obvious, right? Like England should have lost that game. The 2019 final, England were pretty down and out. Like they were, I from what I remember, they were half their side down. I think it was him and Butler that stitched a partnership together that got them closer. So you think about moments like that, like those are going to be etched in people's memories. That was England's first ever World Cup. They never won a World Cup before, right? And then that led to another one with the T20 World Cup. When I say they never won a World Cup, I was talking to 50 over. I know they won the 2010 World Cup, but that was T20. But so just all those iconic moments alone, I feel makes him. I could see the argument for making him the best all-rounder England has produced.
So now looking ahead, how do you see in terms of the leadership for England's test side? Who do you think takes over for their next test?
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, I have no idea. I absolutely have no idea. I know they've been talking about Sam Curran being coming back into the Test match squad because he's an all-rounder. Because we're talking about captaincy, but they're also missing an all-rounder, right? And so they're talking about Sam Curran coming in. He has leadership capabilities. I don't think they should go back to Root. I think Root should not be captain at all. Just let him bat. And they'll have to figure out a way to either mold Harry Brook into a captaincy, or maybe Ollie Pope scores a ton of runs in domestic cricket and then he comes back because he was the vice captain for a couple years or more, right? And so we're in this there. I'm saying we, but England is in this predicament because Ollie Pope lost his spot, and then Harry Brook became vice captain. But then Harry Brook went through his issues that he went through off the field that has led to him not being the front runner for captaincy. And then if you look at the rest of the squad, there isn't some clear leadership or captains in the squad right now. Ben Duckett, I don't think he's ever captain anywhere else. I don't see him being captain either. But he is one of the senior most if I think about their team. Jamie Smith is still fairly young. He's still getting into just learning how to be a test player. And then there's no one else. Jacob Bethell is a left field option. I mean, he's captain England already at 21. I- I've seen how he's operated. He seems like a very mature individual. I think he would be able to handle it, but it would be like a very, very, very left field option because of the lack of experience in the test match game, right? But he seems to have the raw skills to handle it.
You're right, though. There are some potential there in terms of the other players, but let's not forget, you are going into next year, big Ashes tour. You have to be ready for Ashes. We know how mentally, tough that is. The Australians are experienced players. They have leadership upon leadership when it comes to that team. So, you don't want a young, inexperienced lad coming in the first Ashes tour because that can definitely scar a player for their future. But yeah, England definitely has few things to think about. It'll be exciting things to see how things develop. Maybe Stokes comes back. To your point, maybe Ollie Hope comes back. But a lot of news still yet to come from England's test side. Now, switching gears to the other storyline that we mentioned earlier in our introduction. What a week in Ireland for Team India, the holding the current T20 World Cup champions, getting whitewashed 2-0 to Ireland. Struggling from a batting department, struggling from a bowling department, under new leadership as well. Shreyas Iyer, 0-2 to start off his T20 captaincy career for Team India. Is it a time to worry?
I do not think it's a time to worry. I think we talked about this in the previous episode when they lost that first game. We thought it was a one-off, turned out to be a two-off, and I think it was. I think it has a lot to do with the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like I'm bringing up excuses, but again, I mentioned in the previous pod. This Indian team has played a lot of T20 cricket in India this year. They haven't played a lot outside of India. And so I think that has had a big factor, just being in a different environment, different atmosphere, different grounds, different pitches, different vibe, not sleeping in your own bed, not eating the same food necessarily as you would back home, right? I think all that has an impact. And again, sounds like a bunch of excuses, but it makes a difference when you tour, no matter who you're playing against. And I think that has affected them because if you look at the games, India played like they've always played. They just made mistakes that they generally didn't make this year with regards to drop catches, with regards to the length and lines with the bowling. Like they twice had Ireland in positions where they should have got them to a below par score, but they allowed them to get to a par or above par score, which generally doesn't happen. Then with the batting, they generally get off to good starts. They somehow got bamboozled by this Mundra guy that for some reason gave them trouble. And it's very rare for the openers to get out in the first over. And kudos to Ireland. Kudos to Ireland for having their plans in place, for executing their plans. You could also say, again, another sounding like an excuse, but India hasn't played a lot of these bowlers before. These Irish bowlers a couple of them were debutants, right? Their main bowlers were missing. I believe Mark Adair, one of their top bowlers, he didn't play this series, right? They had Mundra opening the bowling that they haven't really seen before, right? So that also plays a factor in. And yeah, you can't take anything from Ireland. They deserve these victories. They played well. They handled the pressure situations. It got close there in that second match, right, where final over, Ashid Rana's on strike. You, I had some belief in Ashid Rana. I mean, he can clear the field. He showed that. It was a little annoying that he mistimed that. It was a full toss, if I'm not mistaken, that he mistimed and got out on, or a half track, or one or the other. But Ireland were able to hold their nerve and pull off the victory. In, yes, a one-run victory, but it was a victory, and ended up being from the greatest day in Ireland to the greatest week in Ireland cricket.
Yeah, no, shout out to Ireland. You do like to see these results for some of the smaller nations as well. It does promote the game. It kind of, adds a little bit of excitement as well, especially, us looking into this series at the beginning, thinking it would be a whitewash for India. But the reverse happening kind of allows for the next series or the next matchup to be really interesting between both teams. But to your point, let's just take on India for a little bit now. Some of the players, again, no excuses. We look at, for example, Sanju Samson, last three scores for India, 5-0-1. Ishan Kishan run out for the second successive innings. And I'm not sure if you caught this, but there was a stump mic that came out after Ishan Kishan got out at the second match. And you hear Abhishek Sharma literally tell Ishan Kishan, dude, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And you hear Ishan Kishan, and sorry, this was not in relation to the last run out, it was in relation to the both last two runouts. And you hear Ishan Kishan make, like, sounding distraught, sounding like he realized it was his mistake in that run out. So again, new leadership, again, people trying to, mesh in different environment, pitches are different. So yeah, fair enough. But now looking ahead towards this England series, we know that's currently, there's a match being played right now between India and England. And it does seem like the one major change that India did make in this series is them dropping currently Sanju Samson for Sooryavanshi. Now, we all knew Sooryavanshi was going to play for Team India. But, Taran, did you expect him to play in the first match versus England right after that tour from Ireland?
Especially after Ryan Doeschate came out and said that Sooryavanshi needs to bide his time. I did not expect him to play in the second match itself. And you could argue and say this is the sorry?
I said he had to wait 3 days.
He had to wait 3 days, right? Bide his time. Yeah, that's great. 72 hours later, he's in the team sheet. I didn't like the selection. I turned on the TV when I found out that Sooryavanshi was going to play. Yes, I turned it right back off as soon as he got out. At the same time, I think Sanju Samson, for me, in the T20 game, has achieved enough credit that he can go a number of matches without getting dropped. Just from what he has done for India in that World Cup. Yeah, it's one series, but it is the biggest series in T20s, the T20 World Cup I'm talking about, that he was able to, you could argue, single-handedly get India that World Cup with the performances that he had in the playoffs, in the semis, in the finals, right? And so to drop him, I hope something happened. I hope there's a niggle that they say that came out, because I feel for this guy. I think he has achieved untouchable status in T20 cricket. Yes, I'm going to say use that word. And when I mean untouchable, I'm talking you don't drop Kohli, you didn't drop Rohit Sharma. I think Samson deserves that amount of credit. Like, you can rest him like a Bumrah. I don't think you can drop him, because he's done so much for India in the last 6 months that at least for the next 6 months, he should deserve every start. And then you reassess after. But I feel it might be a marketing play. I feel that Sooryavansh's stocks are so high that he gets butts in seats. Forget butts and seats. I think that happens regardless, because I remember looking at tickets for these matches and they were all sold out, regardless, before the squads were even announced. I think it gets viewerships up. Think about what I just said. I saw Crick Info. I saw Sooryavanshis in. without even thinking, I was like, I need to watch this, especially after I found out India's batting first. I turned my TV on. I bet the viewership stats went up just from Sooryavansh's inclusion in the team. And I have a feeling this is probably very controversial, but this is more a marketing change than it is a cricketing change.
I agree with that. I do agree with that because now making this change in this series, you gave a debutant his first, innings in the first game of the series. We can expect, I think, Sooryavanshi to be there for at least the next 2 games. I think it's very hard to give someone the debut and then, pulling that rope very quickly. You got to give him a few more matches. And to your point, it does allow a lot of marketing blitz to happen. His stock is high. You're cashing it in right now. To your point, his stock is very high because, again, well deserved. His IPL season was incredible. But, we all know international cricket is very different. He had like a mediocre score today, I think around 14 runs, getting stumped as well. I actually haven't seen him get stumped, so that was interesting as well. Usually gets caught out. I don't know why he's getting stumped today. But no, to your point though, it does seem like they unfortunately quick in their decision for Sanju Samson. I think, it was not too long ago, as you mentioned, he kind of did bring the T20 World Cup for India. He was that marquee player. We know that tournament, Abhishek Sharma struggled. I think Abhishek Sharma's only notable innings that opening was maybe the finals where he scored a decent 50. But it was Sanju Samson who really in the semifinals and quarterfinals helped India get those big scores. And we all know how Sanju Samson plays. Even if we look at this IPL, he'll get those ducks, but he'll get those hundreds as well. He's one of those players where, I don't think you can really judge him on those low scores because he hasn't batted long enough to bat bad. It's just sometimes, he just gets out. But if he's there for a while or, even a little bit, he can give you that 100 and that takes the game away automatically. So yeah, maybe they jumped the gun a little bit on Sanju Samson, but hope this opportunity for Sooryavanshi doesn't deter his growth because we know how hard international cricket is and how much noise also comes along with international cricket.
Yeah, and the dismissals that he had, I think the only one that was bad in the last 3 innings, right? If you look at the Ireland series for Samson, you can say that he got 2 good balls. He did get 2 good balls. You can't discredit the bowler there. And maybe the dismissal against Mahmood was probably one that was Samson getting out, where he just was early on the shot, I believe, and he got caught out, right? So I just think that now, like you said, to your point, you can't drop Sooryavanshi because you're going to essentially break his confidence if you drop him. You can't chop and change. Unless it's been spoken that they may rotate the openers, right? That is something that I could see happening where they rotate between 3 openers, but then I think Abhishek Sharma should be involved in that. So maybe it's a set thing where, hey, you're not going to be playing every game. We're just going to rotate between the openers. I actually just thought about this right now as we're having this pod. I think that would be a great solution to not only ensure that their confidence is not, torn or
Yeah.
broken, and at the same time help with dealing with these packed schedules, right? So you would have, if you kept Samson in, you're talking 7 T20 eyes within a span of a couple of weeks. But now if you do an intentional rotation of your openers, now you can essentially help with managing the players' fitness as well, fitness levels, maybe even mental levels as well, right? Where it's now known that, okay, yeah, you're not going to play the next game, but not because of lack of form, because we're implementing a strategy to rotate the openers. I think that's a great idea. I don't know if that's something that has been discussed, probably has. And I wonder if maybe we see that. I could see that. If that is something talked about, then that's great, right? Okay, the next game, Samson comes in, maybe Abhishek Sharma gets a rest, right? And then the next game, maybe Sooryavanshi gets a rest now because he's played 2 games in a row, and now it's back to Samson and Abhishek Sharma. I think India is in a position as a team to do something like that, just based on the amount of talent that they have, right? You think about it. They do that with their bowlers. So why not do that with their batters?
Yeah, totally agree there. And I think there was also some discourse online about the possibility of including all three in your 11. Maybe have Sanju coming in at 3 and then Ishaan coming at 4. Again, there was some discussion about that.
Then who's
Again,
left out?
no one. You keep Sooryavanshi and Abhishek at the top, and then
But you
before
got
you
to
left,
drop a batter. Yeah, you got to drop someone. You're dropping Dubé. You're not dropping Tilak Verma.
you
Shreyas
can't drop
captain.
Armin because he's a vice captain now, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's when it gets a little tricky, especially because you're giving vice captaincy to Tilak Verma, and we know that usually means it's hard to drop a player. But again, there is that. You're right. There is that problem of who do you drop then, right? And we know as well, Hardik Pandya is going to come in the T20 setup as well. How does he, mix in with everyone as well? So there's a lot of changes as well. I don't know. It's one of those like struggles that India has had to deal with before as well, with the influx of openers that they have.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good problem, but let's take this. You're right. I think they should take this England series to really figure out what works best for Team India.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a rotation strategy might actually help, but that is a problem that Indian cricket has and will continue to have just based on the talent pool that they have, right? And it's a good thing, but it creates a lot of problems. And I think as long as players understand, then the team will be fine. It's when it gets to their head, when they're not sure of their place in the team, when they're not sure that even if they have a good performance, whether they're still in the team or still make the 11, that's when it can create issues. But as long as everyone's on the same page and understand that, hey, when you're part of the team, even if you're sitting on the bench, you're still part of the team. It's just this is the nature of the amount of talent that India has, where it's always going to be an issue with should you pick? Who do we pick? Right? So yeah, it's going to be a fun series against England. The match is going on right now. England's has started their chase. India's doing well so far, and I think a wicket just fell. But it should be interesting how India comes out of the series. Whether they win or lose, I think they'll learn a lot about, okay, what does it look like for the next 2 years until that next T20 World Cup? Because that's how T20 has been going, right? You're essentially playing in 2 year cycles. And now you have a new captain, a new vice captain, and you're playing without Bumrah again. So it's going to be interesting to see, okay, when Bumrah comes in, how do they manage the bowlers as well, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. This 2-year cycle is going to be interesting. Again, Shreyas Iyer's captaincy, how he it takes Team India, the style in which they play. We know Gautam Gambhir is still at the helm, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes forward. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting road ahead for India's T20 setup. I think it's going to be a promising T20 setup. We've had, as you mentioned, a plethora of talented players, and Sooryavanshi is now in the mix as well. So I think at least the next 2 years is going to be very, very interesting for Team India.
Yeah, India Ireland series was just a blip. They'll obviously learn from it, and we won't be talking about this again, probably. I know every Irish cricketer will disagree with that, or Irish fan will disagree with that. This is their moment, and we shouldn't take it away from them. They deserve to win that series, and it was a fantastic series for them because they unearthed some players as well that we'll probably see playing for Ireland for a long time. Really like the look of Jay Mundra. He's Indian born, so you could say it's one that got away from India, perhaps. But left arm fast medium, high 130s looks good. Their batting looks good with Harry Tector, the Tector brothers in general. Ross Adair at the top. The captain Lorcan Tucker looks good, and their bowlers is Hollard, the other debutant or debut series, I should say, and George Dockrell, who's been a servant in Irish cricket now. I remember he was playing in the days of Owen Morgan and Paul Sterling when he was a youngster and an up and coming Irish player. And now he's essentially established and a senior member of the squad. So good things coming for Irish cricket. I hope they learn from this and they use this as momentum to be on par or if not better than Afghanistan, who you would say after the test playing nations is that next best team, right? So I'd like to see Ireland compete more than they have in the recent World Cups, and maybe this serves as fuel for them to push ahead and move forward.
Yeah, no, of course. The T20 World Cup, we all know it's literally right around the corner. I feel like it comes so quick every time it does come. So as more of these teams get competitive, those games, those groups are going to get competitive as well. So looking forward to it.
All right. Until the next episode, that stumps.